Okay, so we're going to look at some supply side questions as a review. Now, when we draw a graph, okay, our typical graph is one quadrant of our Cartesian coordinate system. Okay, we're looking at some quantity demanded on our x-axis and some price on our y-axis. The most basic example, or the most basic graph, is going to be a positive sloped line. In other words, as our price increases, the quantity that we can supply will increase as well. Okay? And so for some line, it's going to look like this. It might not be a straight line, it can be a curved line, whatever it is. So let's look at some reasons why this graph might change. Now, if in a technological advance, right, in the method of producing tires, what's it going to have to do the supply on tires? Well, the technological advance allows tire manufacturers to produce tires more easily using the same amount of inputs. So therefore, our supply line will increase and it will shift to the right. It means at some point less than before, we're willing to start supplying tires, and at every point we're willing to produce more tires. Now let's look here for another one. Alright? Now let's say there's a decline in the number of firms in the tire industry. Okay, so there aren't as many firms producing tires as there were previously. Well, there are simply less firms in the industry, so there's a decrease in our supply. And a decrease is indicated by a shift to the left. Now, what happens if there's an increase in the price of rubber used in the production of tires? Well, if there's an increase in our costs, we will be selling it for a higher price, right? Thus, each firm will need to charge a higher price at each level of output or supply less at each price, which means it's going to shift again to our left, which means we'll be supplying less at each price point. Okay, so let's say before, right? So there's some price here of 50. So at $50, we produce some quantity here, Q sub 1, and now, after this, the firms go out of the business, Q sub 2. So at the same price, we actually produce less. Our supply curve shifted, right? We're producing less supply. Now let's say we have a decline in the price of large tires used for semi-trucks in earth hauling rigs. Okay? We're going to say this is a substitute in production with no change in the production of in the price of auto tires. Alright, so let's discuss that, right? So the decline in the price of large tires used for semi-trucks in earth hauling rigs, alright, with no change in the price of auto tires, will cause firms to reduce the production of large tires, right? Which is now commanding a lower price and produce more auto tires, right? There's a substitute. So a decrease in one will increase the other. A decrease in the price of large tires, right, used in semi-trucks and earth hauling rigs, which is a substitute, all right, for auto tires, means that there'll be an increase in the supply of auto tires. Now, what if we're looking at levying a per unit tax on each tire sold? Okay, so for each tire sold, there's going to be a tax on each one. Well, now they need to pay more for the cost plus the tax. Prices will increase, so there'll be a shift to the left. Now, what if we grant a subsidy for each tire produced? In other words, they get an additional 50 cents, or it decreases the cost of production by 50 cents. Well, a decrease in prices, in the costs or production of the tires, Well, it means they can subtract that from their input costs. They're more willing to produce tires. It means there's a shift to the right. Okay, now to look at this a little bit more. Say we have a graph. We're looking at quantities produced of tennis balls at various price points. So we're looking at $4, $3, $2, and $1. So what are we saying here? This is going to be 5, 10, 15, 20. Okay, so let's leave that one. So, if we were to create a chart that looks at this, alright, with some price P. Okay, so there's $3, $2, and $1. Okay? And there's the Q1 for supply. We're going to take a look at what happens if there's a change. Okay, so Q2, and then delta, which is the change. Well, if the price is $3, we will produce 15. If the price is $2, we will produce 10. If the price is $1, we will produce 5. Now, let's just say production cost increased. Alright? If production costs increase, it's going to change how many we produce at each level. And it'll change to 4, 2, and 0. What would that make our graph look like? Well, let's plot it out. At $1 price, we produce 0, so we'll be right there. At $2, we produce 2, and at $3, we produce 4. This is our S2 supply line. This is our S1 supply line. S1, S2. So, what happened to the change, right? How much does it change between what we produce and what we supply? Well, the difference here is 11. 10 minus 2 is 8. We decrease by 8. To get from 5 to 0, we decrease by 5. So another question you can ask yourself then is, did the increase in production costs, did this cause a decrease in supply or a decrease in quantity supplied? If we started from one point here on our S1 curve and we moved or shifted to some point here also on our S1 curve, this is simply a decrease in quantity supplied, right? So our supply curve didn't change, just the quantity supplied along that line changed. However, in this instance, the change in or increase in production costs caused a shift to a brand new supply curve, right? Therefore, we had a decrease in supply overall.